1.
Welcome to my humble little office. My name is R. Keith Andrews. I am a spiritual guide and paranormal adept. The journey continues today on May 18th, 2024 at approximately 4:31 p.m. PST. Now, I've returned to this world for one primary purpose, and that is to remind people that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. Now, I bill myself as a spiritual guide because the tools I offer are the same tools I personally use in my day-to-day life. And the philosophies of life I talk about are the same philosophies I personally use to guide virtually every movement I make. With this in mind, I know these tools will work for you because they continue to work for me and have worked for literally thousands of others over the years with varying degrees of success depending on their own efforts. Now, let's get to where we actually belong. Today, we are literally looking at how to set your image as a leader. You know, we have leaders, there are leaders all over the place. Some by design, some by choice, some by accident. The important factor that you've got to look at is knowing at some point in time, you're likely going to be a leader. What kind of leader are you going to be? Are you going to be one that people look to for guidance? Or are you going to be one that people are going to look to and go, there's the biggest dipstick on the planet? Now, there is another word for that, and I'm doing my best not to use them. So that's the choice you've got to make. But before I get into any of that, Joe Stewart is in with the gold. How you doing, Joe? Glad to see you on board. Now, I've seen a lot of leadership issues over the years. And one of the biggest ones is I've got a memory that's about as long as a microbe. Because I keep forgetting to close this thing. Now, the nice little part about it, okay, when you're becoming a leader, okay, when you are looking in the mirror and going, how are you going to be a leader? What kind are you going to be? My personal opinion on it and what I caution you about is, look in the mirror first and ask yourself, is the amount that I've got in my pocketbook what makes me a leader? Is my skin color or who I vote for make me a leader? Or is it just simply my attitude? Now, you've got to make up your mind which one. I will tell you, it won't matter in the long run from my experience with well over 100,000 clients. It won't matter how much money you have. People will look at you in all likelihood and go, oh, you've got money, but talk about a creep to deal with. Do you desire to be known as a creep? Your call. Steve, welcome on board. You are in with the silver today. I do my best, and I've come to the conclusion because I'm in the process of building an empire, and that's just the way that's going. This means I'm choosing to orchestrate a position of being a leader. But when I show up, I would like people, personally, I'd like them to look at me and go, okay, there's at least a decent individual. Not, oh my gosh, here he comes again, can you leave? Okay, well, just please don't sit down in this restaurant, just go someplace else. Some of the world's biggest superstars are looked at that way. Okay, question is, I realize you're not necessarily aiming at being a superstar. Okay, Christine, you're in with the bronze. How you doing? There we go. Joe's going, okay, this morning me and my dad went to Walmart to get me a new standing fan for my bedroom. To and from the detour 10 minutes. Before getting home, a car behind us driving mad. I tell you, the way people are driving, that's what I was just referring to here, Joe. When you're looking at being out in public, if you're driving, Pay attention to what's going on around you. Oh, what have we got here? Team Pal, how you doing? Apparently not really well. But hopefully by the end of the day, you'll feel a little better. This is one of my ultimate goals as far as this stream goes. Is you come on here, even if you're having a bad day. Okay, let's see what we can do about turning it around. Now, clearly I can't do a thing about the way your day's already gone. I could tell you all sorts of horror stories without using names of people that have proven beyond a shadow of a doubt. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. Okay. Let me ask you something, Dean, and I don't, whatever you do, don't explain what it was per se. Okay. Now, you said, I'm reading what you said here. Let me ask you this. The first thing you've got to determine is, did you deliberately do it? Or was it you did it illegally and it was purely accident that you ended up doing it? Okay. If it was done by accident or by true ignorance, okay, true ignorance, you didn't know better before you did it. Accident, clearly, you didn't do it. It wasn't an intentional thing. That's an excellent idea there, LA. That really is. Dean, if you want to go into it in more detail. Oh. Okay. Now, number one, you didn't know all that right there. You're talking about a true accident. Number one, okay, the sad part is you've already driven away. Now, I am no legal advisor and do understand that. But I will tell you this. Does it feel like he's seriously hurt? No, certainly he's hurt. At this point, okay, you're going to have to sit back and, well, you've got two choices. You can go and report it, which is the legal thing to do. Okay, it absolutely is the legal thing to do. So you've got to make up your mind. If you're going to do that, do be aware that there are a lot of things that go with it. Okay, I don't feel he's critically hurt. Okay, but that being said, to set your mind at ease, drop me an email. LA has put my email address in just above there. Drop me an email, take a look at what happened, and it'll be easier to determine exactly where you're standing. Okay, the fact you already drove away, you can do nothing about the fact you did that. Okay, so unfortunately, the guilt of that is twofold. One, for pity's sake, don't run over any more people on cycles. Okay, definitely a bad thing to do. I mean, there are times I agree, there are times it's very tempting. But at this point, you can't undo that part of it. And I don't know what I believe you're down in the States, are you not, Dean Powell? See, intriguing. Just a simple comment. Number one, I'm not good with jokes. Okay. Definitely not. So somebody else gets to figure out what to do with that. Valerie, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Oh, I kind of figured you were. And Ellie, that being said, and this is just to everybody, I'm not good with jokes in the first place. And there, that solves that problem. Thank you so much, Storm. The reality is now, I look at this and go, and again, this is what I'm referring to. It does put things really poignantly. What do I got here? There we go. LA is just confirming I've got no humor concerning the welfare, the well-being of others. I've got no humor to speak of. But it does point something out very clearly. Okay, making a comment like Dina has made is literally choosing to be going to complicate your life. Okay, now there we go. And the first thing that you realize right off the bat clearly is when you're talking to people, if you're making comments that are eliciting some sort of a potential emotional response and they're false, you're literally choosing to set the stage of being a leader that people will not take the word of. Ever hear the gentleman of the story, the boy who called wolf? Okay, it really goes sour. Oh, Valerie, yeah, quite honestly, the trip itself, like the flights, were an absolute unmitigated nightmare. Oh, I appreciate that, Valerie. I'm actually this is the first day I've been active. My last 2 days, I've been dead to the world for the most part. But no, the trip turned out far better than I was expecting. And in all fairness, just to be clear, we've already booked part of the flight to go down and see each other again. Okay, the mid part of the flight is already booked. Now we just have to get it sorted around. The nice part about the whole thing, is that whole trip showed me a number of things. And one of the things it showed me was I ran into a number of people that were either self-professed leaders or were leaders by choice. I don't know if any of them were leaders by accident or by circumstance. And LA and Storm, thank you very much for dealing with that. I do appreciate it. What I have found is I do my best to be, to deal with everybody face value. I don't lie to people for a reason. Okay. But I have this big thing, there is a real issue, okay, of once you're in a leadership position, treat the people you're dealing with properly. Okay. Now, I ran into an interesting situation. I've written an article about it. It's going into my free newsletter on the issue of when you're going to a restaurant. I'm just going to point this one out. You get to a restaurant, and the restaurant says, right at the front door, it says, "Please wait to be seated." Now, way too often, I see this happen more with so-called leaders than I do with just common people. Okay, but you look at the sign. Now, if you read a sign that says, "Please wait to be seated," what does that actually tell you? That's the first thing I look at. I stop, even with the restaurant that I go to regularly, it says, "Please wait to be seated." I'm literally listed as regular there. I've got a specific table that is mine when I walk through the door if it's empty. Okay, everybody knows it. Yeah, when I get to the side, to the store, to the restaurant, it says, "Please wait to be seated." So I do. And yet, I watched so many people walk into a restaurant, read the sign, and go and sit where they will. Now, take this into consideration. Oh, there you go. Joe goes, I'm watching Shadow and Sun, a Shadow and Sun show on my iPad. Okay, or yeah, on my iPhone. Okay, on the iPad. We're on his iPhone and he's got the TV going and watching an old Robert Redford movie. This is my kind of sidetrack. It's normal for me to do that. But let me ask you this: if you're one of these people that walks past a sign that says, "Please wait to be seated," okay, ask yourself, Nathan, how you doing? Glad you could join us. Ask yourself this: if you're getting onto a plane, do you know of anybody at all? Okay. Do you know of anybody at all that goes to a plane when you go to get on the plane? Have you ever even heard of somebody going, "Oh, I'm going to board now and I'm going to sit in seat XYZ"? Have you ever heard of anybody even attempting that? Okay. If you haven't, okay, keep that in mind. It is time that everybody starts treating restaurants the same way. Okay, if it says, please wait to be seated, be a leader, whether you are, you're the leader when you get to the front end, to the front of the line. Be a leader and stand your ground until you're asked to seat. Okay, in a bank, people don't go, well, many people go up, they don't wait. Okay, but as a leader, it really boils down to, are you aiming at looking at setting a good example or a bad one? Okay, now you're a leader. You may be a leader in politics. You may be a leader of a business. Maybe you're a leader because you're a parent. Everybody that you are in charge of, anybody that's watching you, you're leading. Okay, and the question you have to ask is, do you desire people to be happy to see you or happy to leave? Now, I kind of go tongue in cheek with it, and I just tell people I make everybody happy. Some by showing up, some by leaving, most by leaving. Now, if I look at it legitimately, I really don't seem to upset that many people showing up. But because I've got no functional sense of humor, I don't actually connect with a lot of the people's behavior, especially when we're talking about poor behavior. Now, for those of you that don't know, the link that just went up, that is for Nathan's show, The Quantum Show. Okay, it comes on tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. Okay, so absolutely drop in, give him a listen. If you like what he has to say, yeah, that's right. 9 p.m. Eastern. I thought it was 9 p.m. Central. But drop in. Drop in, give him a listen. Okay. Give him a listen. If you like what he has to say, do give him a thumbs up. Do share that. Do subscribe to the channel and share the daylights out of the thing. Because I will tell you, it is this connection, it's this sharing of links that is going to help us spread this neat little idea that we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. What do you mean now the Vatican's getting involved? Vatican's been getting involved for decades. Actually, in all fairness, the Vatican has been involved for centuries. Yeah, that's that old rule there, Joe. You gotta hose it can be used for other things. You know, one of the things we have to realize about this world is the way you carry yourself is the way that people are going to learn to carry themselves. Okay, and you got to remember, there's an old saying. You've got to remember there is this neat little old saying that goes, now how did it go here? I forget exactly how that went, but that's okay. When you look at being a leader, okay, you got to remember the way you carry yourself is what people are going to remember. It's what people are going to emulate. Okay, and this boils down to, if you turn around and tell people, and tell a child they're an idiot, okay, if you do that repeatedly, they are going to believe they're an idiot. Okay, by the way, same thing applies to talking to yourself. I used to tell myself consistently, I've got an absolutely pathetic memory for names. Okay, but when I started telling myself I'm remembering names more and more readily, all of a sudden I was starting to remember names that I had never been able to remember. Okay, but what we have to look at this point is, when you're building your image, do you desire to be memorable because you're a decent person, or do you want to be memorable because you're self-serving? This is a decision you've got to make. It's like I could be on here, and I'm going to present myself as a slob. Now, I figure I'm not a great fashion statement anyway, but the way you carry yourself in public will affect the way people treat you. I know this for an absolute certainty because I used to go to hotels. I'd come off the airplane and take a cab. But I will tell you, there is a massive difference. Okay, there is a massive difference between the way you get treated if you come out of a cab as compared to if you come out of a limousine. Now, I personally am aiming at coming out of a limousine eventually. When I travel, when I'm actually having to take a ride to the hotel, if I've got the option for a limo, I will take it. That's just the way it is, because of a number of things, not the least of which is the feel of it. I am looking in the mirror and going, I'm not content with the way things look for me. Now, I don't know what you guys think, but when you look in the mirror, okay, when you look in the mirror, do you look in the mirror and go, hey, I like what I see. I like the way people are talking about me. I like the reputation I've got. Or, from your standpoint, are you just trying to make sure that people look at you and go, oh, you're special, so we should give you special treatment regardless of how you treat us? Okay, I will tell you, I have seen some appalling behavior, and it gets even more complicated. Okay, gets even more complicated when we start looking, and we'll deal with this tomorrow. We will deal with country leaders, and I don't mean the leaders themselves, but I mean country leadership. We will deal with that tomorrow. But in your neighborhood, for you personally, if you desire to be treated better, if you desire to be, if you desire to be treated better, then treat the people around you in the best way you possibly can. Okay. It is critically important that you do that. Now, there's a lot of ways that you can make that happen. One of them is absolutely take a look at the image you've got. Now, here's a couple of things I know seem to mark a leader to most people. Take a look at the way you're dressed. Well, start with your hair. If your hair is pointed in every direction, it's not a good image. It does not show care about yourself, and therefore, people will automatically, and I say will, because after well over 100,000 clients, way over 100,000, okay, I've seen what the other people deal with. Okay, I've seen the way people treat each other. If you go out in public and your hair is all over the place, or in males' cases, if you haven't shaved, I guess that goes for females too, but and there are some people, I do agree with you there, LA. I don't personally worry about what people look like, but I do know the massive majority of people do worry about it, and then probably ignore their own appearance, it would seem. Okay, but the majority of people do seem to look at appearance. They certainly look at behavior. Problem is most people won't say anything. Okay, and maybe that's a benefit in some ways, but unfortunately, if you don't say it when something is off kilter, what you're basically doing is you're condoning it by proxy. Meaning, if you don't say something, people will take it as though it's okay. Now, for your common person, for just everyday run-of-the-mill, absolutely, how you look, be my guest. I looked in the mirror when I looked at my weight in specific. I did not like what I looked like. So I turned around and modified it. Okay. My hair, every time I get cut, I tell them point blank, certainly keep it short. I'm not changing the style. Okay. This is why I've still got the ugly mug I've got. That and the fact that I'm just plain not interested in changing it. But you look at your appearance, look at whether you're neat and tidy, take a look at your clothing. Okay. We are talking image here. Now, I'm not talking about what style you wear. If you're one of these people that figures that wearing brilliant colors spandex, if that's the image you're comfortable with, if you could look in the mirror and go, yep, I'm happy with that. Everybody else, doesn't matter in all fairness. If you're happy with the way you're looking at it and with what you see, and you're treating people the way you desire to be treated, this is the image you look at. Not whether I say, oh, you should be wearing a 3-piece suit. I'm not about to tell you that. Most of the people I've seen in 3-piece suits seem to get hung up on themselves. It is amazing the number of people they're theoretically well off that carry themselves like, hey, look at this wonderful clothing I've got. You should treat me better. The type of clothing you have does not make the person. It will affect the way people look at you. Absolutely. But what you got to remember is it's how you treat people that's going to stand out. That's the thing we've got to look at. The way you're treating people. When I was in Reno, I was constantly stopping to thank the cleaners that were going through the place that were keeping the place looking spotless. Here's the thing. I saw some things in Reno, and I'm not pointing names out by any functional stretch, but I saw things in Reno from people that were known as leaders, and the way they behave made a real solid impact on the way people saw them. Okay, some of these were people that they, you know, and it applies to everybody. Okay, I don't care who I know. Okay, I had a very bad run in Reno. My stress was off the charts. Okay, now don't get me wrong. Reno itself, I would not have changed the trip. Okay, I found some things. There was one restaurant in Reno that if I ever go back to Reno, I will never set foot in the restaurant again. Because I will tell you this, it was the one restaurant in over a decade where I would have literally fired. I would have fired, if it were up to me, 3/4 of the staff, and I wouldn't have even blinked. Oh, yeah, no, I understood that, Nathan. You know, when I was in Reno, there were people that were absolutely phenomenal. Okay. And there were some I looked at them going, why are you working here? Now, I did get an explanation later because I order my drink the same way every time. Only I didn't realize I was speaking a different language. You know, the thing that caught me way off guard in this one bar I went into, they asked if I wanted a drink. I said, yeah. I asked for 2 fingers of rye neat. And the waiter looks at me and goes, what is that? Now, to me, I was speaking English. Apparently, people in the States don't call that drink 2 fingers or rye. And they have no clue what neat, or at least he had no clue what neat meant. I got what I want, so that worked. Okay. But I didn't realize there was such a difference in linguistical capabilities there. Now, I don't know. That wasn't what really upset me with it, and I'm not going to go into that. But there were people there, like, and I will tell you, this one I'll call by name. It's not a bad thing. Okay. You know, it's not a bad thing by any means. We had a waitress in Cafe Central that went so far above and beyond the normal call. That was the one. That was the waitress that should have been in a very definitive, you know, lead position. I don't know if she was, but she went way over the top on what was required. Okay, you know, that's what I mean. I will remember, like with Cafe Central in the Silver Legacy. Okay, Suzanne working there. I will quite readily remember until the end of, you know, until my memory gives out. Oh, there we go. I appreciate that, LA. You know, and Nathan's just going, not proud of it. It's an American culture thing. You know, and this is the thing, and I'm going to get into the culture side of it. Oh, okay. Sad part, we were way over in Reno. You know, mind you, decades back, I was in Boise, Idaho, and they asked me, one of the young adults who was there asked me when the cross country dog sled race in June was. And was worse than that, he wanted to know about the one that ran from Vancouver to Toronto. For your guys' edification, June is summer up here. And Vancouver to Toronto is a 3,000-mile run. Okay. So it's a little bit of a problem. You know, but when you're dealing with people, especially like in my case, I do not intend on people, you know, I do not intend to leave people looking at me going, what a creep. I mean, I absolutely, in most cases, would like people to just leave me alone. But I don't have that option because of what I'm doing and because of especially one event. I have decided that I am going to open the doors. On top of the consulting I've already said, it is time to step out of the shadows and really put my own healing capacity to work. Okay. we had a real good run-in with a real good encounter with somebody that was an absolute mess, okay, with a really positive outcome. So I have decided that, will I be opening that door and going back to work with it? Yeah, I will. But again, it boils down to karmic law. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. I have a talent, and call it cocky, call it egocentric, whatever. I have a talent, an ability to assist other people's healing rate in picking up, even in the most bizarre setups that doctors have already said can't be done. As I've told people, in my case, let's not discuss what I cannot do. Okay, it's just not worth the effort. But when it comes to your outlook and the way your world is going, are you content with the way people are responding to you? Do you have people looking at you? And, like, for instance, if you go out, do you have people looking at you and treating you decently? Or do you get the feeling when you're dealing with them, they're looking at you going, I'll deal with you because I have to, I'm being paid for it, but I'm going to stay away from you as much as possible. Okay, it may be the way you're carrying yourself. Now, I do caution you. I used to have to ask a friend of mine why people keep asking me for money. And I said, it's not like I don't know, like I've got any. And he goes, no, but you carry yourself as though you do. And all I do is I'm just me. You know, it's like I tell people, I'm just not that special. And I know some people have met me and said, no, you're wrong. Now, what is this? I gotta ask, LA, what, pray tell, is spirilla? I think that's a wheat sort of thing, is it not? Oh, sarsaparilla. Okay. Oh, I appreciate that. You know, that's that thing that I mentioned. I tried the last time I was down there. I really enjoyed it. I haven't gone looking for it much up here. I probably should. I think I might be able to get it up here, but I gotta look around. Of course, with what it's going to cost me for the trip down to El Paso or down to New Mexico there, what that's going to cost me is going to really cripple my ability for the time being to afford much. But that being said, we've already booked the joining flight from Salt Lake City to El Paso. That's already been booked. Now I just gotta get my tail feathers down to Salt Lake City. That one I can do. It's just going to be tight. But again, it boils down to, I tell people, this is what I'm doing. Same applies to you. Okay. If you desire your world to change for the better, you're the one that's going to have to put the effort in. Okay. And that's why I've got to start, as a matter of fact, I really got to start, posting this and advertising it more. This is the book that changed everything. Okay, it's the one that lays out exactly the way I did things, and that I continue to do them. Okay, believe in yourself and follow your dreams. This is how to reorganize your own outlook on yourself and literally co-create a new you, the one that you desire to be remembered by. Do you like being remembered by somebody that says, oh, there's a creep, I know him, I mean, let's face it. If you're stepping into the spotlight, Joe, the importance of a repeated dream. And this is where a dream journal comes in real handy. The first dream, and when we're talking repeated, understand, for all of you out there, if a dream is not identical, you look at the theme, okay? But the first time you have the dream, write it down, okay? That will give you a starting point. Now, the second time you have that same similar dream, okay, you write it down a second time, but remember to put the date and time. Okay, the second one gives you a marker. Now, the third dream comes along, okay, and you mark it down. Now you have a time frame because you look at it. Let's say on the first dream, it's 2 months apart. And the second dream you have, the first dream is 2 months. And then a month later, you have another dream. And then another couple of weeks later, you have a third dream. Okay. And you go back, you look at it. Now what you've got is you've got the first spot. A month down the road, coming down, you're now at 2 weeks. Then you go another week down the road. Okay. And now you've got a graph line that you can get an idea of when that dream is going to occur. Now, it's not exactly an exact formula, but it is a formula that works. Okay, but that's where they come in handy. You know, the nice part about it is that when we look at this world, okay, those dreams, depending on what they are, and they may, you may have different time frames, but somewhere in those dreams you'll be able to actually sort them out. If you don't understand them, okay. Now, I will tell you, there's a lot of dream interpreters out there. In answer to that question, somebody's going to ask, yes, the fact is I've been interpreting dreams since I was 5 years old. Now, granted, I wasn't telling other people how to interpret their dreams until I was in my 20s. But do I handle those as well? Yeah. I've been working as a professional psychic for, well, I don't know, 1986. So that might give you an idea. So we're looking at just about 40 years here. And the one thing we have to look at, okay, is every one of you has the same capacity I've got. You can literally, it was said centuries back by another individual. I'm just going to repeat it for you. Okay. And no, I'm not going to tell you who said it. But there was a gentleman a long time ago that made one comment. All that I do, thou shalt do, and more. The same thing applies with me. Everything I do, 90% of it I can teach you. Okay. Are you likely to have the same strength? No. I've got 60 years of building that strength. And 60 years of building that strength still has not done me a bit of good where it comes to directions. As a matter of fact, in Reno this last week, I did find that not only is my sense of direction a shambles, I don't notice in an elevator whether we're going up or down. Okay, so I'm also, from an altitude standpoint, I seem to have a problem. It's pretty bad when you can get lost on an elevator. LA, literally anybody can develop mediumship. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Anybody can learn it. You can, because everybody's got the ability. Remember, the corporeal body is a vehicle. The soul, the person inside that body, is the one that does the medium work. And every one of you has the capacity. I do, however, caution you, it takes a certain amount of getting used to. Because you got to figure out, essentially it's another language. And it's one that is done by feel, not so much by vocalization. Although as you get stronger at it, you will hear people. And rest assured, if you think graveyards are quiet, you've never been able to pick up on the people that talk. Oh, fantastic. I am so glad to hear that, Nathan. Okay. That is wonderful news. This is the sort of thing, because I question a lot of the time what I'm doing, but corroboration or confirmation such as this, is absolutely imperative from my standpoint. Because I'll tell you, I talk a good game, I know this, but I question everything. Okay, especially what comes out of my beak. I spent decades trying to figure out whether I was absolutely off my nut or not. Excellent, Nathan. I'm so glad it worked. I've been working on that. I've been working on that recently. Last week, I didn't take it with me either. LA, the answer to your question, can aliens respond to a call for help from an individual? The answer there is, can they? Absolutely they can. Will they is a whole different question. Okay, and that's an individual thing. Sometimes they will break protocol, which is what happened in one case where Zeta Reticulum broke protocol and ended up getting reprimanded. Joe, where the dreams are in your journal. If you go back, you can track down what your time frames are, and you can get a gauge on when they're going to happen, when they're likely to happen. Needless to say, nothing is written in stone regarding the future. Remember when you're looking at the different aliens there, LA, remember again, it boils down to this. If you are presenting yourself as a decent person, they are tracking it anyway. And people that are bullying people that are more self-important, they may be watched. They may be watched by various different races, but quite often that's a case of, okay, they're treating people like that. Why are they being looked up upon? Now the thing is, leadership and image is applicable to every species, every race I've come across. Okay, whether we are talking what you know as a cognizant individual, as an intelligent being, or whether we are talking about an ant or a thrush or a rock, all of them have the same outlook. Image is what people recognize. Okay, reputation is what goes before you. Oh, that's the easy part, Steve. And Steve is just asking, why do departed souls feel the need to hang around cemeteries? Many departed souls pass before they have tied things off. So they've got unfinished business. And cemeteries is where humans specifically go. We put all the people there, and then that's where you go to talk to your deceased relatives. So, as a conjunction to that, the departed souls hang around there because it's the easiest place to find the people that they left behind. That's what the biggest issue is. Okay, and rest assured, they hang around cemeteries, certainly, but I'll tell you, they don't stay in their graves very much. If you pick up medium work at all, you'll come to realize that the graveyards. Ultimately, Nathan, you're right. Nathan's just adding, it's literally quantum link keeping them available. Ultimately, it is. Because you got to remember, the soul is a non-corporeal entity. The body is a vehicle. So when we start looking at that, we have to realize that a graveyard it is a group thing. Okay, humans on the whole look at a graveyard no matter what world you're in, what country you're in. Y'all look at it essentially the same way. Okay, you look at the graveyard and go, that's where we put our loved ones. Okay, and that gives that extra link between the world beyond and the physical world. Okay, when that happens, this is why I say if you're in a situation where you've lost someone close to you, okay, number one, they're usually easy to find. Go to the graveyard. But here's the neat thing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether or not you go to the grave that your loved one is in, or just another graveyard. Okay, the fact it's a graveyard, it's like I tell people, if you're striving to make contact with somebody that's passed on, okay, there are 3 ways of doing it. Take a photograph of the person that you're striving to connect with. Take it with you, okay, because it's easier for you to bring that image straight to the forefront of your mind. At that point, in a graveyard, it is perfectly acceptable in most people's cases to see somebody in a graveyard and they're sitting down, they're talking, they're laughing, they're crying, whatever emotion. And they're talking as though somebody's right there with them. Humans on the whole look at that and go, that's normal behavior. Now, you can either do it, take that picture with you down to the gravesite and talk to the person there. Okay, as though they're sitting right there in front of you, because odds are they still are. The average turnaround time for a non-corporeal to be reborn as a human. I'm about to slap myself in the back of the head to make sure I quit stuttering. Average turnaround time is 70 years. Usually they show up on the far side of the planet. This is to avoid conflict of lifetimes. Okay, you can either sit down in the graveyard that your loved one is in, or go down to any graveyard, take a photograph of the person left behind. It'll help you bring an image to the front of your mind. Okay, and talk to them in any gravesite. Nobody questions it really. Okay, so you just talk to them normally. Now that's the first method. Second method, you can do the same thing in your own home. Okay, bring the photograph to the forefront of your mind. Look at it, talk to the person as though they're right there. Okay, and clearly if you're doing this in your own home, nobody's going to bother you about it. But the one I personally like is you go to a local restaurant, one you're comfortable in, take the picture with you, okay, and start with nobody else on the other side of the table. Start talking out loud to the person left behind. It's a great showstopper for people. Oh, nice, Nathan. Yeah, having a bench to sit on is a great idea. In a cemetery. I do encourage people not to walk on the graves. Okay, I can tell you from practical experience, they really don't care any more than somebody living in an apartment building worries about somebody walking on the roof above them. Okay, because it's just part and parcel of the picture. But again, this is still an issue of treat the deceased the way you desire to be treated yourself. Because I will tell you, you treat the deceased person poorly, they will make the effort to come back. And that's not always an enjoyable thing. This is just one of those neat little hiccups that we run into. Now, one of the biggest things that we got to look at when you look at your image, okay? Now, the reason I keep those on at all is because I haven't quite got my eyesight to the point that I desire it to be. But, and this was something else, when I said I was going to get back into the healing side of things for people. Okay, these glasses, 2007, and different prescription, but if I held them right there, I could not physically see them. Okay, it just didn't, I was not capable. At this point, some of the blue, when you look at the chat room, where the moderators are written in blue, some of that I can read now. Okay, without my glasses. Not much, but I can read some of it. Never honestly thought about that one, LA, but LA is very correct. LA goes, an equally important reason not to walk on a grave is some of the older ones will collapse and the ground around it will too. You could break an ankle. Of course, in all fairness, you want to take that to an extreme level, you could break a neck. At which point now we've got a group home. Yeah, JoJo saying I don't even go back there at night anymore. Yeah, Nathan says the people here were all farmers. They were grouchy at night, nice in the mornings. That's because first thing in the morning, they had their breakfast, got up and got moving. Worked the entire day, sometimes straight through lunch, sometimes not, and absolutely exhausted by the end of the day. And yes, when you're exhausted, the odds are your temper is going to be a little less, shall we say, a little less flexible. But again, watch the way you're dealing with people. If you know you're tired, be careful. Okay, do your best to stay on even keel. Honestly, Nathan, they really do. But you got to remember, when you're dealing with people passing over, the way you are now, it's like pedestrian, like drivers of automobiles. You watch the way a person behaves in an automobile, okay, or outside the automobile. You can bet your bottom dollar. Okay, you can bet your bottom dollar outside their vehicle, they are going to treat people essentially the same way. Okay, now, admittedly, my stress was way too high, and honestly, Dave, because Dave Scott was there in Reno, and honestly, my stress level was way too high. My tolerance of things was, shall we say, not well contained. But Dave did step in when one individual pushed the limit and managed to make sure he slowed things down a little. I don't handle stress well, in case you haven't figured out. But this is why when I say this is what I'm doing, I tell you guys, this is the changes I'm aiming at making. And I do believe, no, I did put them away. That's amazing. I was going to say, I do believe I probably forgot to put the stuff away. The reality is, and yeah, I do see that. Ellie's going, it's hard to rest up from resting. Yeah, you ever notice if you sit still too long, you start getting more tired? Yeah, fortunately, Steve, although that's funny, fortunately, the government doesn't seem to register the ghosts. And I'll tell you, I don't know of a government official that would try and collect taxes from people that have already passed. You know, although I've invited a lot of ghosts home, especially ones I find trapped in between worlds. It's like, okay, you want to come and hang out, there's no problem. But there are rules. Intriguingly enough, the rules in my house apply to corporeals and non-corporeals alike. Okay, it's that simple. You know, one thing we have to realize is when you're in a graveyard, okay, you're in a gated community. Follow their rules. Now, be careful you don't take that literally, because they all go to their own homes in the daytime. Okay, most of them do anyway. Okay, when I talk about follow the rules of that gated community, okay, this does not mean go in and find a gravesite to bury yourself in. Although if you're into that sort of thing, pick one that's not already occupied. They usually have, residents they'll have one or two sites that are not occupied. Yeah. Yeah. Unfortunately, and again, this goes down to anybody that's got this brilliant idea that that when you're in a gravesite, when you're in a graveyard, it's okay to vandalize. Ask yourself this. If you're vandalizing, you're telling people, I'm looking to create a problem. I'm getting feedback. Okay. You're telling people, I'm looking to create a problem. Okay. Is this the kind of leadership you desire to express to the world? Okay. And realistically, is this going to work in your favor? Okay. That's the biggest thing you got to look at is what image are you portraying? If you're out there vandalizing a gravesite, vandalizing a building, tagging a building, okay, all of these are frankly in my eyes negative leadership qualities. There was a park here in Kelowna where I live where the guy that dedicated the park literally said this one wall is for graffiti. It's for murals. Well, there was a crew for the first number of years that would come up. They would do little sections of murals. Then our local government decided to be real brilliant, and they went, "No, you're not allowed to do that anymore." And they started cracking down on the people that came out to do the murals. Now you got to remember, this was the leadership that was shown to start with. One of the guys in the group, he organized the whole 9 yards. Once a year, that group would come out and they would bring with them whitewash and they would paint the entire wall, paint all the murals over once a year, and then they'd start over. Then we got a group of politicians in the area that went, no, you can't do that anymore. And they came out and they started chasing the mural painters off. And they put spotlights on. So anytime you came by to do a mural, which by the way would take an hour and a half to 2 hours, the cops would show up within 5 minutes because that was what their job was, and chase them away. So all they ended up having on that wall that used to be beautiful colors, all they had left on it was graffiti where people would run along, scribble on it, and run off. Okay. Okay, I heard that, but I don't think I was supposed to. This is where politicians can create a problem. Okay. You know, this is where politicians and leaders can create a problem. If you're doing guiding, if you are leading people by a bad example, by a destructive example, you might desire to take a slightly different approach. Unless, of course, you're trying to create a problem. Oh, not a problem there, LA. Yeah, Steve goes, some cemeteries lock their gates at 5 p.m. Yeah, but you notice it doesn't stop the spirits from leaving. You know, the neat part about it is if you go down to a cemetery that does lock the gates, you can stand outside it and still talk to the deceased. You know, I was just reading, Nathan goes, you know, one time when I was learning to talk to my guide, I was watching a video online of these women that do remote viewing of haunted places. They went to the catacombs. You know, there's only one reason I won't go to a catacomb. I'm likely to get lost. I mean, and let's face it, it's not a question of me going, I will get lost, but you get lost often enough and you come to the conclusion it's a good gamble. So I just don't do that anymore. You know, cemeteries, if I left my house, I'd probably see more cemeteries. But however you're treating people, and bear in mind, for me, people is simple. The planet, the animals, the plants, the humans, the non-humans, ancient races, you know, off-worlders, they are all people. Okay. Yeah. And he goes, excellent place for a medium or empath to stay out of. They can be extremely intense. And this is why I have a problem with a lot of crowded areas. You know, the biggest challenge we have to look at is when you look at the world, ask yourself, are you treating everyone and everything that you come in contact with in the way you desire them to treat you? This is literally an issue of your leadership and your image. If you are treating people poorly, you know, if you're treating poorly, then unfortunately you're likely to get the same treated back. Now, the unfortunate part here, Steve, you know, Steve goes, it keeps the young hooligans out. It absolutely does. Unfortunately, I have found myself that many of the vandals aren't young. Okay, they range, well, it depends on your definition. I'm guessing 30 years to me is pretty much young. Okay, I mean, let's face it. As of 5 days, I hit 61. So a 30-year-old to me is still a young sprog. See, the neat part about that, Nathan, and this is why I tell people I will do my best, which reminds me, I've got a couple of phone calls I have to make when I get done this stream. Okay, I do my best to get in touch with people. Where are we here? I do that so I can see. You know, the one problem I find is society has said, you don't like something, destroy it. You don't like that artwork yourself, tear it down. I'm telling you, tearing it down doesn't change what was there. Okay, all it does is remove some beautiful artwork. You know, why it went up, it went up to commemorate something centuries ago. So what I'm looking at with the number of vandals that are out there, is a staggering number of people that are so caught up in their own world, they go, it's not important to me, therefore it's not important to anybody. Okay, this is just blanket the wrong way of looking at the world in my eyes. Okay, the fact it is not important to an individual does not mean it's not an important piece of information. And this is something that we have been educated away from. As in, it's almost all about immediate gratification, self-actualization. I deserve to be in the spotlight. The thing people keep forgetting to ask is not, what can he get out of this? It's not, what am I owed? The thing that has to be asked and acted upon is, what can I do for today's society, for today's world, to encourage it to be left in better shape than it was in when I got here. Now, thank you very much, Steve. The fact of the matter is, and this is just a blanket because I'm seeing more and more of it come into my email. Okay, I'm seeing more and more people going, "Oh, we can do this for your site," or get me on board. I can do this for your website or for your newsletter. The newest one is the newsletter, and is both positive perspectives and positive perceptions. Now, I will take input from anybody, but do understand, I have a very definitive picture in my own head of what I'm looking for. Okay, and I've gambled way too often on what proved to be hollow promises. So, there was somebody that contacted me the other day, and honestly, I don't recall who it was. I don't recall what they came through my email. That's all I recall. But they were pretty blatant in their statement that this is, that this is referring to them and myself. This is our newsletter, and this is what we should do about it. Bad news, guys. And this is going to sound real egocentric, and I'd apologize if I actually figured it required an apology. But positive perspectives is a baby that I ended up building quite by accident in a lot of ways. Positive perceptions was a natural evolution of your guys' encouragement. But like I told the people in Hollywood that wanted to tell my life story, right? They wanted the rights to my life story. I looked at them and I said, you're not getting them. Same thing applies. Where are we? The same thing applies to positive perspectives, positive perceptions, and the way I'm writing. Okay. Yes, I will absolutely take input. Okay. And some of you have some brilliant ideas. Christine, my birthday was on May 13th. I just turned 61. That was part of why I went down to Reno. As it turned out, I spent my birthday with my other half. What we got here? Just going, this was 4 years ago, fall time, got dark early. Just looked out upstairs. Some people decided to do some street racing in there. Oh. Yeah, you don't street race through a gated community. Although I've seen people street race through a parking lot, through a grocery store parking lot. Matter of fact, I nearly got killed by that. And had I been hit, I would have been. Well, that's I know there are people older than me. Are there people with soul memories that are older? Not a lot. Let's face it. And this is where it gets really, really trippy. Where is it? This series, okay, the Older Boxing Chronicles. I'm just tying off literally the last 20 pages or so of the third edition, but the first one literally covers a whole pile of things that are a whole lot different. Yeah, I haven't actually posted any of the ones I brought in. Of course, I'm trying to remember how to get the pictures off my camera onto the computer to be able to post them. You know, one of the things we have to realize, and this is something where it comes to leadership, it's extremely important to remember. Okay, you have no option. You will get older. Doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get older. The question you have to look at is, are you going to choose to get old? Okay, you know, are you going to choose to start going, oh, I'm old, I just, you know, I'm breaking down, I can't move anymore. We're told, the leading professionals in medicine are telling you, as you get older, your joints will deteriorate, they do not recover, your eyesight will falter, your teeth will collapse. Okay, I'm telling you, I am in better shape today than I was 30 years ago. As a matter of fact, another bonus out of the trip to Reno is, as I've told you, I've been fighting to break the 190-pound mark on the way southbound. On the holiday, I broke the 190, and I've continued to drop since I broke it. This morning I was down to, and I can't give you that without light. Remember, I mentioned I was going to make my weight change. As of this morning, I was down to 188.8 pounds. Okay. Where are we here? So, if I'm correct if memory serves, in England, this means that I am 9.4 stone. Okay. If I remember the old English term. I don't know if that's what you guys use anymore. Okay. But I decided I didn't like my weight. I didn't like the appearance. Okay, I used to have hair all the way down to about halfway down my forearm. Okay, I decided it was time for a change for me. Okay, I decided it was time to alter the way that was going. So I did. Where it comes to your image, how do you desire people to see you? Because I will tell you, clothing does not make the man or the woman, but it does make an impact on the way people see and or treat you. If you don't believe me, get into sweatpants and a sweatshirt and see how quick you're accepted into a 5-star restaurant. Okay. Now, I will tell you, I was in a self-proclaimed 5-star restaurant one day. And when I walked in, the first thing I noticed was that half the pot lights on the ceiling were out. Right off the bat, I'm like, this is not 5-star. Then when I got up to the service desk, you know, the reservation desk, they had the floor plan masking taped to the top of the desk. Now, I don't know. In your opinion, does it sound like 5-star treatment? Oh. Okay, I accept that there, Steve. I had to turn it on because I couldn't see that. But with that in mind, let's see how well that works. I'll turn that back down. I do not like it when my leg starts to go. Okay, back down to better, I trust. But, yeah, Storm goes, I want people to wonder if I'm the latest incarnation of the Grim Reaper. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're the latest incarnation, but you probably give them a good run for the money. See, I've always looked at that, Ellie, at the whole idea of superstition. Now, I don't understand what the problem is. I cannot look at the number 13 as a bad luck. Okay. Well, maybe it is. I'm still here. But I've always wondered. They say it's good luck if you throw a pinch of salt over your shoulder. Now, if that brings good luck, you got to ask, how much luck does it bring if you throw a block salt over your shoulder? Yeah, I'm amazed it's running that well, actually, Christine. Yeah, pretty much. I question whether it was good luck or bad luck. They keep throwing me back up here. You guys get to figure out if that's a good thing. And I will give you the heads up there, Ellie and Storm. When we come down to see you, there are some interesting conversations that are bound to happen regarding birthdays. See, one of the things I look at is I know I came back to this world. I know I was told I've got a major job ahead of me. But I will tell you, there are days when I look at it going, why am I bothering? Like, really, why am I bothering at all? And this is something like, it's a good thing I don't actually tell people what I really think of them, because I would lose a lot of connections really fast. And in my understanding, if you're going to lead, you might want to have people left thinking there's at least something nice about people. Myself, I am very opinionated. We know this. Okay. And I do accept help from people when required. But what I'm not about to do is relinquish my values on what I see as the important path. Okay. And I know some people will push to the point. I had one individual I ran into. I have no idea who the chap was. Okay. But he seemed to have this brilliant idea that he was all that in a bag of chips. I'm looking at him going, if you're a leader, if you're intending on being a leader, how can you treat people that poorly? And I see this way too often. Ironically, I see people, especially your major Hollywood moguls or your business people, the great big ones that everybody knows. They're millionaires. They treat staff like absolute garbage. Let me ask you this: what is the difference between where it comes to the value of a person, where it comes to somebody living on the street or somebody living in a penthouse? What is the functional difference? Because I will tell you, so many people I run into that have acquired physical wealth, okay, have forgotten how to be decent people, or they just chose to ignore the idea. And this is the thing that we all have to really concentrate on. If you desire your world to change, like maybe the problem with my actually making the books and making my boots. Yeah, we're gonna try and make my boots move. Maybe the problem is I'm doing an absolutely pathetic job of marketing. As a matter of fact, that probably is the problem. But the number of people that I've spent money on that have said they could help has amounted to thousands of dollars in losses. I'm not interested in spending thousands of dollars and throwing it away for people. When I say all of what I'm doing here is free, it is. Okay, but I will tell you, if I don't pay my phone bill soon, then we're not going to be on air for a reason. But I will deal with that. I've got the money in the bank. But I am a professional procrastinator. Something we have to realize here, okay, is when you look in the mirror, is what you see, is that the image you desire other people to remember? Okay, is the way you speak the way you desire other people to remember your speech patterns? Like, I have found that, honestly, I've never heard of anybody. Well, that's not true. I heard of one. I've only heard of one person get promoted for swearing at the people around them. Only one. Now, you'll love this. The woman worked for... What is that? The woman worked for a place that touted itself as the world's rudest restaurant. The waiters and waitresses, the cooks, the bartender were all told, treat the staff, treat the customers like garbage. Do not give them what they're asking for. Give them what you desire. Argue with them if you'd like to. Be disrespectful to them. Why anybody would go to a restaurant like that, I have no idea. But apparently it's making good money. It happens to be located, if I recall correctly, somewhere in the central northern states. I do not know where. Okay. There's another restaurant in the southeastern states called the Roadkill Cafe. And again, I mean, to each their own. I'm not going to a store or to a restaurant that's called that. Mind you, there was an old chain that used to be called Hooters, and I wouldn't set foot in the place. Not because it was a bad restaurant. It's just not my cup of tea. But again, it boils down to this. Yeah, apparently they do. What do we got here? See, I'm certainly not going into that one, but the reality is, LA's going, interesting point. During the Nuremberg trials, nobody stood up for a single officer in charge. There were a couple who stood up for some of the underlings. I remember hearing about the Nuremberg trials, but I have no clue what they were for, and that's okay. I'm quite happy with ignorance in this case. I do believe that comes out of, now what was that? That's not Miracle. I was going to say that was Miracle on 34th Street, but that is not. Oh, That's a Wonderful Life. Right. Yeah. LA just bringing up, the Nuremberg trials. I mean, this is going to sound absolutely backwards to everybody. Okay. I never understood the term war crime. War is a horrendous thing, and people do horrendous acts in war. The war itself is the problem. But, from my standpoint, it's just my own outlook. Okay. I looked at it and went, the war never should have happened. I don't care which war. Okay. Saw those too, and those are a lot of fun to watch. But we have to realize, again, leadership is what makes the difference. If you, as a leader, promote the negative And this is what happens in many of the major media outlets, the major newscasts. This is why, in positive perspectives, I refuse to put the negative there. Absolutely, Nathan. I figure there's enough newspapers, news outlets, podcasts, there's enough things out there going, here's all the things that's wrong. There's no shortage of it. I just flat out refuse to deal with it. It's fine. There's a lot about history that the reason I don't know is because I just didn't bother researching any of it. And most of it I disregarded. I was much more personally concerned with the amount of bullying and the amount of abuse I was seeing locally. Yeah, the global thing is wrong, but the global thing is a side effect of the way the society has, in my opinion, devolved. Okay, I could go off on a real sideways tangent on that, but something we have to realize, and I will go into a lot more detail about this tomorrow regarding country behavior. But in your community, number one, you desire the crime level in your community to drop. Become a leader and start getting, become a leader and start getting to know your neighbors. Find out who they are. Find out what makes them happy. Okay. And come to an understanding between the two of you, or the 6 of you, or however many people are there. Get to know who they are. One thing I have found from virtually everybody I've talked to, in a community where people are communicating, where they are talking to each other on a regular basis, crime level drops. This is not because all of a sudden everybody's going, oh, you robbed somebody, so we're gonna turn you in. That's not the issue. The thing is, when people get to know each other, all of a sudden the interest in stealing from them, on the whole, tends to taper off. Now, given that I'm a firm believer this is the way it works, and after 56 years of watching this happen, I can tell you, with the number of people I've talked to, it works. Now, I will tell you, people have asked me, well, how do you relate to other people? I don't. I just don't. I look at the way people are and I'm going, you can't seriously think. Well, apparently you can. How can you seriously think that your negative behavior is worthy of being looked at, is worthy of being respected? Okay. I remember I was in a restaurant, or not in a restaurant, in a hotel one day. And I thought I was quick, but I'll tell you, the night auditor was phenomenally fast. This businessman come in. You knew he was a businessman. He came in a 3-piece suit, carrying a travel bag and a briefcase. Now, it's 2:45 in the morning. Okay, I don't sleep a lot. But 2:45 in the morning, I'm talking to the night auditor. And this guy comes in, sets his briefcase down, very politely, very businesslike, no problem. And then he opened his mouth. And now we're in a Ramada. Now, virtually everybody around the world knows what a Ramada Inn is. Okay. This guy walks in 2:45 in the morning on a Friday night. And he asks the auditor, excuse me, can you tell me, are you open tomorrow? Right. And, the night auditor, I just looked at the guy and didn't say a word. The night auditor responded like that. He glances up at the clock. It's 2:45 in the morning, and the night auditor looks at the businessman and goes, oh my gosh, thanks for bringing that to my attention. We close in 15 minutes. I got to get these people up and out of here. I got behind, I got talking. Right. Well, the businessman picks up his duffel bag, his briefcase, looks at the night auditor and goes, "Well, I'm not staying here," and turns around and storms out of the building. You know, well, I'm standing there looking at the night auditor and looking back at this guy walking away. The night auditor looks at me and goes, "What the heck was that?" I said, "Boss, that was absolute abject stupidity." I don't know what planet the guy came from, but who closes a hotel, period? I mean, the Ramana of all things. But like I said, I've seen a lot over the years. And I intend on seeing a lot more. See, here's the thing. I'm told as you get older, you get weaker, you get sicker. Thanks, I appreciate the offer. I'm going to turn that one down. But I'm aiming right now, I'm 61, which means I'm looking at getting another, on top of my current age, another 37 to 30, no, sorry, another 76 to 77 years more out of this body. This is why I am working to turn it around. Yeah, there are questions, they say there's no stupid questions, but there are questions like, for instance, I knew a lady that was an aquatics instructor trainer. That was her career. And one of her students during right before their practical exam, their final exam, looks at this instructor and goes, "Teacher, do we have to get in the water during our final exam?" Now let's remember, this is an aquatics instructor. Okay. Now, why would you pass the person at that point? But this is what we've got going on in this world. People are not being taught common sense. But if you're going to be a leader, it is best, in my opinion, learn to think before you ask questions. Now, this is kind of like the pot calling the kettle black. Okay? Because somebody will open their mouth, and I'm pretty much certain to put my foot in my own. Okay? Because I get asked questions, I look at them and going, "Did you think?" Like, not, "How did you think that?" or "What were you thinking?" But just, "Did you think?" Because many of the things I've watched happen, like I look at that, I remember I was outside, and again, I do recognize myself as a leader, partially because I've got a mouth that just doesn't go into neutral. I'm outside of Walmart, right, and my leg was working, so my cane was in the car. And this woman pulls into the handicap stall, and she gets out. Well, she is clearly not handicapped, right? And it did not appear her two boys were either. So I took a look at her, I looked at the sign, and I says, "Let me guess, your handicap is you can't read." And she looked at me and goes, "Pardon?" I said, "Well, the sign clearly indicates handicap parking. You're not handicapped, and your two boys don't appear to be, thankfully, which means the only thing I can assume is you can't read the sign." I said, and that begs the question, how, pray tell, did you get a license? Well, she looks at me and goes, "You can't talk to me and embarrass me like that in front of my kids." I said, "Ma'am, if you can drive like that and embarrass yourself in front of your kids, I got no problem adding to it." And I said, "Number one, I'm an English major. Number two, not known for being subtle." Well, she said a couple of less than polite things, backed on out of the stall, and drove off, just as another lady come in that was clearly handicapped. Right. And she turned around. She thanked me for driving the woman away. I say, "No problem. That's what the stall is for. You know, like I said, lead by example. Okay, I use handicap. I've got a tag for my car, and I use the handicap stalls when my leg's not working, or if there is a premium on parking stalls. In other words, if there's not a lot of parking spaces, I'll take a handicap stall. Okay, if I don't require it, I won't use it. And there's a reason for that. As a leader, doesn't matter who you're leading, and bear in mind, whether you think you're a leader or not, if you're in the front of a line, okay, and there's people behind you, you're the leader. Okay, and therefore, if you, as a leader, stop at the sign, stop at a sign that says, please wait to be seated, the people behind you are much more likely to follow suit. Okay, especially if you have to be dressed as though you're successful. Sad to say, but clothing does affect the way people see you. I had a slightly different word for that, Steve. And I've met some people over the years. I met people that I thought were really good people until I saw them behave in public. At which point I'm looking at them going, you've got to be kidding. Like, you're supposed to be, oh yeah, absolutely, Steve. I've looked at people, and people I've known, it's like, okay, you're not a leader. You're a spoiled, self-important brat. One guy I told that to, he came from a very wealthy family. He looks at me and goes, you can't talk to me like that. I looked at him and went, wrong, thanks for playing. The reality is this. Whatever your station in life, do your best to look in the mirror and go, everybody else is my equal. I'm no better than anybody else. I'm no worse than anybody else. I will tell you, every one of you have talents. Every one of you have skills that go above and beyond other people. There will always be someone that is better than you, someone that is more talented than you in some field, but you will always be better than somebody else in certain fields. But it's the way you treat people that will determine whether you're looked upon as a leader, as a positive influence, or as a bully. You're calling how you want to do that, or in how you desire to do that. One thing I will tell you is I am going to be tangling with this whole thing a lot more. I was going to avoid certain topics. This one cannot be functionally avoided. Thank you very much, LA. I appreciate that. Looking at the behavior of people and people's images or countries' images, is one of the things that has to be looked at. Because if we continue on the path we are currently on, this society is going to implode on itself. Okay? And the whole idea that I keep hearing people talk about, we should overthrow this government. Read Orson Welles' Animal Farm, if you can find a copy. It will show you in brilliant technicolor, verbally speaking, what happens when a government is flipped over. Okay, now, when it is just overthrown, what ends up happening more often than not is you just get another bunch of people doing exactly the same thing. Now, this tells you that these systems work. Okay, I tell people wholeheartedly, out there, out in the rest of the world, that's your guys' domain. In this world, I'm God. Now, don't get me wrong. I believe in God wholeheartedly. And I do not put myself above him. He's got way more experience than I do. Okay. So, absolutely, get your guidance from who you can. Now I'm going to cause a stir. Okay. I've run into a few people in person But I will tell you this. You guys have seen the way LA Moon and Storm deal with things in the chat room here. I will tell you from firsthand knowledge, I've run firsthand experience. I have rarely met people that run the same way in a private setting as they do in public. Okay, if you require somebody to use as a template, as a role model, if you will, I strongly suggest you watch the way these two behave. Okay, I always swore I desire to have the best of the best around me. Okay, and those two, I've known them for, I don't know, I think a decade now, maybe a little longer. Might be a fraction longer. But you desire role model, guys. There's a pair for you. Okay. Now, the reality of it is this. When you look in the mirror, ask yourself, are you presenting the image? When you look at that picture, are you presenting the image you desire other people to see? You know, and like Steve Knox goes, he's going, I'm just being nice. And that's the whole catch. Do unto others as you desire them to do unto you. Uh-oh, here we are. Oh, there we go. The Storm goes, our first interview on Hazy was 12 years ago. You know, and I mean, it's been a roller coaster. This will be the first time going down in August this year. Will be the first time in, I think, 6 years or 5. No, it's gotta be longer than that. God's been forever. I don't even know how long it's been. But it's been 8 years. There we go. See, this is what I get for having no sense of time. Okay. I do know my other half is really looking forward to coming down as well. So I did get word. That's what all the pinging was here. The flight has been set from Salt Lake City to El Paso. It's locked in. Now I just have to make my way to Salt Lake. Which is great. Because now it becomes a whole lot less expensive. You know, instead of working out all of it. But the flights, the sad part is with travel, it is expensive, especially in the middle of summer. Yep. Good bet there, Joe. Now, where are we here? Oh, we are that close, are we? You know, the important factor from my standpoint is actually really simple. If we take this microcosm of a group, okay, and we start, as we've already done, start spreading this message that working together, we can make this a better world for virtually everybody. If we do that, okay, in spite of what's going on in the world, there is no doubt in my heart that we have the capacity as a society to bring this world back into balance. The question is, are you going to work with us to actually make this happen by treating people around you in a decent fashion, in a fashion you desire to be treated? Or are you going to choose to be a problem child by looking at your bank book, looking at your business, and going, I'm better than you are? Okay, I'm telling you, that kind of behavior for me does not make brownie points. I remember working in a restaurant one day when a guy listed off everything he owned and demanded I cater to him because he owned all these things. And I looked at him and I went, no. Well, I own such and so forth and what have you. I looked at him and I said, I care why. You know, on the flip side of that, there was another millionaire, and he literally, the same day, he calls me over. He says, Keith, would you please send a waitress to get me another beer, or ask a waitress to bring me another beer? I said, I got no problem with it. I'll get them on there, Harry. Harry was his actual name. Fantastic shops teacher. But I'll tell you, there was something more going on. The one thing I noticed with him was he was always nice to people. Didn't matter who they were. Didn't matter what their position. And this is the thing. Where it comes to your own image. Okay. Absolutely critical to look at that. Thanks so much for dropping by there, Steve. I appreciate you sharing your time with us. Whatever you're doing in life, be sure you're laying down the groundwork so people remember you for being positive, for being a joy to be around. Okay, at least that's my recommendation. Because I don't know about you, but I don't like losing my temper, and I'll tell you, I had one event where somebody pushed the wrong button. Okay. They pushed the wrong button, and I didn't even know the button was there, in all fairness. But it hit me completely backwards. I appreciate that, Storm. You know, the reality is, I've been called a lot of names over my life during my life. Okay, and I will tell you, most names I will respond to, but there is a way of delivery on occasion. You know, the reason I go by Keith is quite simple. Ronald died when I was 5. Ronald being my first name. Okay, he walked out of the morgue. Well, more to the point, he didn't walk out of the morgue. He was put in the morgue, pronounced dead. I woke up in the morgue, walked out. Mom and Dad, as soon as I tugged on Dad's shoulder, or on Dad's pant leg, I pulled on him because I heard the doctor. I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Andrews. We lost him. I walked up to Dad, pulled on his shoulder, on his pant leg, and went, "Who'd you lose?" Mom and Dad, right then and there, turned around. They turned around and said, and literally, they stopped calling me Ronald on the spot. Okay, that definitively held. Now, yes, many companies know me by Ronald because computers don't like first names. They're more to the point, they don't like middle names. So I simply adjusted to that. But which one do I go by? Well, figure it out by looking at the title. By looking at my name on the screen. Might be a hint. I'm not known for being subtle. I have come to the conclusion that people are paying attention to what I'm doing. People are paying attention to what you're doing as well. And the critical factor you have to remember is that when you're looking at your behavior, people will remember the way you treat other people. They will remember it for years to come. Okay, one of the things now I mentioned earlier in the stream, I mentioned this young lass by the name of Suzanne. Now, I've got a very definitive way of tipping people. Okay, but when I was a kid, I looked at some of these shows that went where a rich person would go into a restaurant and they treat the waitress like absolute garbage. And then they tip them an exorbitant amount of money. I always liked the look on the people's face. But I looked at it and went, there is no way I'm treating people that poorly. So I swore when I had the cash flow to do it, when I had the extra money, I would turn around and tip well over the normal going rate for me. Not for you, but for me. Okay, with Suzanne, I had the bill. And like I said, the bill came in, it was 44 and change. I ended up tipping her. I tipped her above normal to start with, just because she was a good waitress. But I had the extra money to deal with it. So I ended up tipping her on a $44 bill. And this is not because I'm special. This is because it's a personal choice on my part. Okay. I ended up tipping this woman $35 on a $44 bill. And the reason for it was simple. we had run out of, first of all, she guided us into the restaurant in the first place when she wasn't actually working there. Okay, so she was off shift and brought us straight to the place. Then I found out 2 days later she worked there. And they had run out of hot chocolate. And my other half had already mentioned that the hot chocolate there was the best she'd ever had. Well, this waitress, even with the hot chocolate down, made my other half a fresh hot chocolate. She handmade a fresh hot chocolate, way above and beyond the Call of Duty. But on that note, we're down. Looks like we're at the 5, I think. Yeah. So I do want to say thank you so much for sharing your time with me. Really appreciate it. I know you've got busy lives. Tomorrow, we're going to be taking a look at leadership and the countries that are listed. Okay. The countries that are purportedly the leaders of the world. And we're going to look at just exactly what that leadership is doing. Countries, communities, globals, moguls, that sort of thing. But until then, I will be back tomorrow. Tomorrow we look at communities. On Monday, we look at the off-worlders and the ancient races. And then on Tuesday, we're going to look at the creative side of things. And we're going to carry on forward. I'll figure out the rest of it after that. In the meantime, until we meet again, do take care of yourselves and each other. And for pity's sakes, stay positive.